A busy night tonight in severe weather land. We'll have all the latest on that. A slew of changes coming to the east. The ocean wind is playing havoc with temperatures in some places in the Northeast. And there's still pockets of winter weather going on. And next week, guess what? We've got a blocking pattern. All that and more on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in
West Babylon
New York and Southwest Suffolk,
County,
serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut,
tri-state area.
with everything you need this spring: mulch, topsoil, sand, and just about anything else. Landscaper, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, 631-756-1125 is the phone number, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. But that's not all.
No, our affiliate, Weatherflow, has Tempest, and you can get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observation network on the planet. And if you check the link that's pinned at the top of the chat board and you use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show, you get 10% off. So, and 10% is 10%. Oh, there you go. I got to get rid of me. Hold on a second. Get rid of me.
Don't have to get rid of you. If without you, there'd be no show.
Well, I didn't mean that in a literal sense.
Oh, you're just flipping from
just
one side to the other.
just changing video sources here. Welcome everybody to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. Joe Rayo sits on the right. I am Joe Cioffi. I sit on the left.
There he is, right there.
None of this reflects anything political here. Welcome to everybody on the chat board. Hope you had a great day and looking ahead to the weekend. Tomorrow's Friday. So as far as Sunday night's show, we're going to try to get one in instead of 11 a.m. We're going to try to do a Sunday night show at either 8 o'clock or 8:30, depending on what time I get back. So that's the tentative schedule at the moment. Okay.
Well, can I just put in a word here?
Oh, please do.
If we're doing a Sunday evening show, try to do it at 8:30, because at 8 o'clock I listen to Gunsmoke.
Of course you do. Okay, so if there's going to be a Sunday show, it will be at 8:30. Welcome to those of you who are lurking in the background. You can join the conversation, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can take part in all the shenanigans that go on the chat board on a nightly basis. Hit the subscribe button to do that and turn your notifications on. So this way you get a notification every night the Joe and Joe Weather Show is on, which is usually Monday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. We're off Fridays and Saturdays, and Sundays we make an appearance and do a show at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So anyway, Mr. South Wind today, Joe. Mr. South Wind made for some rather cool temperatures that came in during the afternoon, especially from New York City. I don't know whether it got to you or not, but I was looking at some of the temperatures at 6 o'clock tonight. It was in the 50s on Long Island and across southern Connecticut, and low 60s New York City, up and down in eastern New Jersey. Go to western New Jersey, it was in the low 70s. That wind's going to be important tomorrow because it's going to be from the east. So I think you're going to have a really wide spread of highs tomorrow, from 50s right along the immediate coast. Well, inland, you may get into the 80s, and everybody else is going to be somewhere in between.
Well, as I did today, started out kind of cloudyish here in Putnam County land, and it was still mostly in the upper 40s and low 50s. But then the sun burned through by midday, and up went the temperatures. And Joe, by the time we got to like 3 or 4 o'clock, upper 60s. I think we peaked out at 69 here in beautiful Putnam this afternoon. And tomorrow, I have no doubt that we will approach upper 70s to near 80. But I think you're right. Onshore winds, southerly or southeasterly winds, will hold temperatures down near the coast. Again, Westchester Airport, we often say that it is White Plains, but really it's more like Harrison, New York, which gets a sea breeze off of Long Island Sound. And so the record high at the county airport tomorrow is 83, but they probably did that on a west southwest wind. Tomorrow, with a southeasterly wind, I'm expecting temperatures tomorrow in White Plains or Harrison or wherever you want to call it to the airport to be more like the lower 70s or maybe the upper 60s. And you're right, too, about Long Island. This is one of those days where inland spots, warm up really nice, big time. But unfortunately, exposed to that sea breeze, temperatures, especially along the south coast of Long Island and along the Jersey Shore, may not get much out of the 50s tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, it'll be that kind of day. Meanwhile, we've got quite a bit of severe weather going on tonight, so I thought, I think we should go ahead and get moving on that and taking a look at what's going on. A long uh, train of severe thunderstorm watches are up tonight from Texas all the way up to central Illinois. Now, some of that's getting whittled away by a weather front that's already passed on through. And we also have tornado watches that are up around Chicago, in northeastern Illinois and in southeastern Wisconsin. Radars are busy there, and they're also busy down in the Texas part of the severe thunderstorm watch. You see on the watches and warnings map, those dark reds, those are actually flash flood warnings that are up. Meanwhile, we still have some vestiges of winter weather advisories in North Dakota, with northeastern North Dakota and northern Minnesota under winter storm warnings, advisories to the south of there, and a few advisories up back in Montana, parts of Idaho, and parts of Colorado. We've got the red flag warnings for potential brush fires from southern Ohio and southern Indiana down to Tennessee, but that's going to get alleviated because the risk for thunderstorms is going to be pushing to the east tomorrow and for Saturday, so at least the rain and the higher dew points will get rid of the dry air, and that'll be that. But it also figures, by the way, Joe, just to hint at the long range, I don't know how far down the road that you looked, but it would have been lovely for snow lovers to see it in January or February or even in March. But of course, it comes at the last week of April, where you have a lovely blocking pattern setting up across North America, and it's going to mean for much cooler temperatures next week, and maybe some opportunities for rain along the way. We'll see.
I know sometime in January or February on one of our shows, I had said, I know when everything is going to fall into place for snow lovers. It'll probably be at the end of May or end of April or early May. I know I said that. It's too bad I didn't make a notation as to exactly what date I sent it. It would have been hilarious to run that tape or run that comment back all those weeks or months ago to where we are right now. Because yes, indeed, it looks like we're going to be in for a round of unseasonably chilly, if not downright cold weather for the next week or two coming up. And yes, there also looks like precipitation wise, we're going to be in that too for the next week or two. So it's going to be seemingly a backward spring when we get to later next week into the following week.
Yeah, it seems to me, as I recall, we have the last couple of Mays have been like that. Slew of above normal months of temperatures, and then May winds up being below average when it's all said and done. Meanwhile, take a look at the satellite loop, just lovely up and down the East Coast. And you see right up again from Texas northeastward through Arkansas into Missouri, Illinois, up to southeastern Wisconsin. Getting a lot of lightning strikes showing up on the satellite loop. We also have a ton of moisture that's coming into the Pacific Northwest as energy continues to just roll along in that area. Let's check Tornado HQ, where we've got severe thunderstorm warnings up in and around the Chicago area. So let's take a look at these. Let's see. So we have a severe thunderstorm warning along a line from near Macon to near Stonington, moving northeast at 55 miles an hour. I love when we get these cells flying at the speed limit or higher. And this covers Christian, Macon, Moultrie, Piatt, and Shelby counties in Illinois. We also have, now this is around the Chicago area, a recent severe thunderstorm warning with a severe thunderstorm located near Channahon, moving northeast at 50 miles per hour, and that is in Cook, DuPage, and Will counties in Illinois. So that's the Cook County is Chicago. Where else? We've got a bunch in Texas. I'm just going to want to do the Illinois ones. Here's another one. Severe thunderstorm along the line from near Pleasant Prairie to Bannockburn. Bannockburn.
Why did they come up with all of these crazy names that are so difficult to...
Well, from Bannockburn to Itasca.
Itasca sounds good. Yeah, I know.
I tasked her yesterday. Itasca, moving northeast at 45. That's also in in Cook, DuPage, and Lake counties in Illinois. Let's go. Let's get out of Illinois. Let's go to Wisconsin. Wisconsin. That one is expired. So that actually saved me because the one was in Milwaukee County, and the other one was, which I know how to pronounce. The other one is Waukesha. Waukesha County. I hope I'm doing these right. I'm really touchy about making sure I pronounce these counties correctly. Now, in Texas, we have a severe thunderstorm warning located near Doss. Severe thunderstorm near Doss, or 15 miles northwest of Fredericksburg. That I can pronounce, moving east at 30. Gillespie and Llano counties in Texas. Also warnings right now in Grimes, Madison, Montgomery, and Walker counties in Texas. In Franklin, Red River, Titus County in Texas. Burnett, Travis, Williamson counties in Texas. And Smith County, and Bell, Milam, and Robertson counties in Texas. Then Burnett and Llano again. Okay, so that covers that. We don't have any tornado warnings at the moment, but we do have some flash flood warnings, as we said, for this area. Usually, most of the heavy stuff right now is between Dallas and San Antonio. So you're headed up in that general direction, or heading down from Dallas, heading towards San Antonio. You're going to have some rough driving to get through with some of these storms. And on the radar, on the wide radar view, actually there were a few tornado warnings earlier, but this is what it looks like on the wide radar view. Not fairly impressive here, though. The way it looks, the signatures here on the radar, a lot of red cells in there, a lot of red echoes in this very slow moving front that's moving through the Mississippi Valley.
It is a very, very impressive looking line, especially for this time of the year, or the latter part of April. But in as much as you see that line right now, and you say to yourself, boy, wait until that thing gets to our neck of the woods. Well, if it does make it to our neck of the woods, it really won't be until Saturday late. And it looks like, Joe, from what I saw on SPC, that a lot of that activity is going to be drying out or diminishing over the northern half of the line, and it may not get any closer to, let's say, Delaware or South Jersey relative to our area again by later Saturday.
I'm wondering whether they may push it up a little bit. Yeah. Just looking at the guidance.
As Muskie used to say on those old Deputy Dog commercials, it's possible.
Yes.
It's possible.
Johnny Quest hit the Super Chat tip jar, and he asks, is it me, or have there been an unusual amount of tornadoes at nighttime? I haven't been paying much attention to whether the tornadoes have been during the day or at night. I know there was a lot of severe weather last night when this front was moving across Iowa and northern Missouri. But the number of severe weather events and tornadoes is well above average so far this spring. That I'm pretty sure of.
It's pretty scary to have one of those things at night, though.
Oh, I would. Yeah. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
They're frightening enough during the day, but when you hear a freight train coming, but you can't see it coming, that's got to be terrible. That really that can't be that can't make you feel good. Let's put it that way.
No, it's one of those things that I'm happy that I've never had to deal. A couple of times we've had up where I am. I mean, severe weather, severe thunder. One time, in fact, I think it was a couple of years ago. We were under a tornado watch, and we had severe weather rolling through here at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it was a dramatic lightning display. I'm thankful that we did not have any tornadoes, but it is kind of scary. The darkness adds a little extra bit of anxiety
What
when you
wasn't that
really
the
can.
wasn't that maybe the one because at least in our neck of the woods in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, tornado watches during the day do happen. But that particular one, Joe, I think that might have been the first time, certainly in my experience, that we actually had a tornado watch up during the nighttime hours, as I recall
Uh,
that.
all I can tell you about my memory about that is that um, out of habit, I turned to channel 61, which for years during the time when Cablevision owned uh, News 12 and the Traffic and Weather Channel, I could rely upon that to flick there and see within 2 minutes a radar and latest information about the stuff. Couldn't do that time. I remember when I flicked on to channel 61, the new owners, Altice, have now converted that channel between midnight and 6 a.m. to a um, infomercial channel. So when I here I am, it's the lightning, the thunder, and the dramatic flashes out there, and oh my goodness, oh God, it's terrible. Click on channel 61, and what did I see? Chef Tony showing me how to make pasta vazul or
Yeah,
something in his brand new cooker or his brand new crock pot or whatever, and that basically killed all of that. I just don't even bother going to channel 62 on my channel. Is That's the weather channel, and usually in cases like that in the overnight hours, they're running documentaries like the tornado of 1957 or whatever.
all right.
Totally useless. By the way, for those of you who aren't aware and do have Altice or Optimum cable, Fox Weather is now available on channel 193, and that's a very good alternative to both uh, you know traffic and weather on 61 and the Weather Channel on 62 because they do weather. It's amazing, Joe. It's a weather channel, and they're actually talking about weather and showing you things like surface maps and radar. So if you before you pull all your hair out, go to channel 193, and you can at least see some weather on Fox Weather. But I remember that night. I remember that well. Tornado watch, all hell breaking loose outside my window, and all I could see on my TV that night was Chef Tony showing me how his crock pot works. So,
Yes. And for those of you who have Alti stock in your portfolio, the stock trades now for under $3. So just in case.
oh,
Keith James II hitting super chat tonight, and he wants to know when will the 2023 hurricane names and the outlook come out for the year? The names are out. They've been out. And actually, the good news is that uh, they are all relatively easy to pronounce. There's one name that's a little tricky. I think it's the I name, but most of the other ones are easy to pronounce. As far as the outlook is concerned, and we'll talk more about this as we get closer. Colorado State University put out their outlook, and they are going for they're predicting 13 storms and two majors, which is just a little bit below normal. Two instead of three. Three is normal, is average. So they're going for two. 14 is average. They're going for 13. And, when we get to the latter part of May and we start to get we start to deal with tropical weather outlooks and all the rest of it, we'll go through that some more. And if we get a chance, we could pop the name list up at some point tonight, Joe, and
Well, the
you can go over it.
the ice storm, I would pronounce it Idalia.
No, Idalia. That's the one.
Idalia.
Yeah. I is E.
Yeah.
Idalia.
Right.
That's the only one.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's get this weather. Let's keep going here. We do have, of course, we've got snow. Where else but in the Dakotas and in Minnesota, and actually quite a bit of it right now showing up on the radar in northern Minnesota and into North Dakota, where we've got those winter storm warnings up. And in fact, on the digital forecast, they're going for upwards to a foot in some places in northeastern North Dakota and parts of northern Minnesota. Minneapolis is actually on the edge of the snow shield. So it's pretty much in the northern part of the state, and also in the northern part of North Dakota, and then some leftover snows as you go to the west. And speaking of the west, we'll just take a quick peek here and go to the west coast, where we still have snows going on in the up and down the Cascades, but nothing that warrants any kind of winter weather warnings there. All right, here's the Storm Prediction Center with all those severe thunderstorm watches and that tornado watch. And by the way, it's right now we're just about to tick to 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7 o'clock Central. So if you're watching this on a replay, obviously the radar and satellite images are dated. So is the severe weather information that we gave. So be sure, if you're looking for severe weather information where you happen to be, you're going to go to weather.gov and get the absolute latest. Don't want you to be relying on, watching a show that it was live earlier and you're watching it in the middle of the night thinking you got thunderstorms headed your way. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Marginal risk tomorrow. They've added an area here: western Pennsylvania, southwestern New York, eastern Ohio, and northern Kentucky. Also down in Mississippi, Louisiana, and southeast Texas. Both those areas at a marginal risk. And day 3, which I think they've left unchanged. They might have nudged the northern edge. See, here's where I would disagree with what they did at the moment. I would have pushed that northern edge of the general thunderstorm flank further north. I don't know why they're cutting it off where they're cutting it off, unless they're thinking that, okay, the south wind and the marine air that will be prevalent on Saturday limits thunderstorm development in those areas further to the north. But I thought that there might have been just enough. There's enough energy and enough of a trough coming through that maybe you want to push that general thunderstorm area further north and maybe nudge that marginal risk further north.
I was thinking, at least this is what I was thinking yesterday, that if there were any thunderstorms to be had, it would be late Saturday night,
Yeah.
or even spilling over into the very early part of Sunday. It would be interesting to see. I know they don't have anything for day 4, but it'll be interesting to see tomorrow whether or not they do have any part of the tri-state area. The same as tomorrow. Tomorrow, it'll be interesting to see whether or not for day 2 they do extend things a little northward for convection, as you said. And on day 3, which would be Sunday, whether or not they would have anything for our area. Maybe, again, tapering off early in the day on Sunday.
SBC does have a 15% area for day 6, which is Tuesday into Wednesday of next week across central Texas. And that would correspond to a slight risk for severe weather. And as far as liquid precip is concerned, we'll give you the updated map here. Now, with a blocky pattern, with a developing next week, and storm tracks that are going to take tracks much further to the south than what we've been used to, this time of year, that could mean for really substantial rainfalls. And you can see what WPC is really loading up in the lower Mississippi Valley and in the western Gulf states here, Joe. They're going for anywhere from 3 to even some patches of 5 to 10 inches along the Texas coast there. And the 3-inch area in the dark red pushes all the way up to southern Missouri. Also, and this is important too, because there are, much of Kansas is dry, as is Oklahoma. So they're indicating 1.5 to 3 inch plus rainfalls in parts of Kansas and Oklahoma. So that might be good for their very dry conditions there. In the Northeast, in New England, it's 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches, a little bit less as you go south, and then it picks up again in the Carolinas, down into the Florida Panhandle and over me. Weather was gorgeous today after a low of 44, got to 82 this afternoon with lots of sun, low humidity. Been dealing with 25% relative humidity around here, which is really nice. But
Oh,
that looks to
incidentally,
change next week.
incidentally, I mentioned this on my Facebook page. It was in 2016, 7 years ago on this date. 7 years ago on this date at 6 o'clock in the evening, Central Park's relative humidity was 9%, one of the lowest relative humidities ever recorded at Central Park. And it was on this day 7 years ago. I don't have the dew point, but 9% relative humidity. It was almost like being in Arizona on this day in New York City in 2016. Amazing.
Now I'm looking at this long range and thinking, this is just. Sometimes I think there's some evil man that dictates how the atmosphere works, and he doesn't like snow lovers in the East. He particularly enjoys torturing them because I'm looking at this overall pattern, Joe, for the next 2 weeks. It could not be more blocky. Okay, I mean it absolutely could not be more blocky than what it's showing. And if all of this verifies, even remotely verifies, uh, you can forget about 80s for a while. Okay, I won't say forget about 70 because there's always the chance of the odd day, especially as you start to get into the month of May where you could just make it to 70 almost on a reflex. But this is just a really chilly pattern that's setting up for next week, and the storm track is. You got short waves that are coming down now from the northwest, diving down into Texas and basically moving straight across to the Tennessee Valley and off the mid-Atlantic coast, one after another after another. I mean, this is just insane that this should show up now and was nowhere to be found during the winter months.
Well, you say it's insane, but you were also right in the fact that the last few years in the month of May, May is supposed to be the month, the spring month, where you have temperatures in the 70s and 80s, those dry days, those sunny days, sometimes even the occasional hot day. And yet, more often than not, over the last few years, we've had these crazy patterns of unseasonably cool and damp weather. And it looks like we're heading toward that as we move into the latter days of April and into the opening days of May, and all due to this blocky weather pattern that you just pointed out.
Yeah, I mean, here's next Tuesday where you have a closed off blocking high in northern Labrador. Energy from Canada is getting shoved underneath it into the northeast, and then you've got a completely separate southern jet with systems moving along. Now, going back to what I was saying with regards to the lower Mississippi Valley and all that big rain, I mean, this could wind up being, we may wind up seeing not only some big rains, but possibly severe weather events that are going to track further south this time around, instead of being up like they are right now in and around the Great Lakes and in the middle Mississippi Valley and points north. And this may be more to the south and for the southeast. This is a severe weather system here, a season here in the southeast. It hasn't really shown up yet for the most part, but it's going to show up with this blocking pattern that we have. And by the way, it holds through for 16 days. I mean, it's still there after 2 weeks. You've got a vortex sitting in between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. I mean, this is cold. Let's just look at the anomalies. I'll use the 2-meter temperature anomalies here, and you'll probably see a lot of blue. I'll just roll back. You can see where all the blue is, which is all below normal temperatures. Now, again, there could be the given day in between where you wind up warming up a little bit, but the dominating pattern starting early next week, I mean, this is Sunday, you already got below normal temperatures coming into the east, and they stay here all through next week, and we'll just keep on going. And you see there, I mean, it's just pretty endless. And now in a winter where the west was below normal in a big way, they're finally above normal with some ridging going on in the western part of the United States. Again, it figures that this comes at the end of April or the beginning of May. Frank Scalera, Joe. Frank Scalera hitting super chat.
Yes.
Thank you, Frank. So let's talk about the next few days. Let's bring up the Cioffi. Actually, before we even do that, I want to let's look at I'm going to bring up the 700 millibar and take a look at what we're looking at for the weekend. So just let me set that up here. So this was back on Monday with an upper low over Wisconsin. Remember, it took almost 3 days for this thing to get out of the way. And now you've got this wrapped up upper low in northeastern Minnesota, which explains why it's snowing up there and why we're getting the severe weather we're getting tonight. In fact, if you look, this is at 2 a.m. You got all these jet streaks from Indiana down into Arkansas and northeast Texas. So that's pretty much that line of thunderstorms we saw on the radar is going to hold on for a while as it moves to the east. And then tomorrow, it's more where SPC's got those risk areas lined up. And here's on Saturday. Yeah, you see, this is why I would put it in. That's a fairly decent shortwave. There's a separate shortwave here. If you look at 700 millibars, Joe, here's your trough, but right in here there's a little kink right there. There's a little kink in the flow there. That's Saturday afternoon with all those jet streaks going on. That's why I think that I would have, maybe put that risk area up a little bit further to the north than they did.
It does you do have a good argument there for that. And incidentally, on the chat board here, Craig Carlberg said, "I got to go back to jeans and long sleeve shirt weather next week. Just when I thought I was transitioning into summer wear. No, it's going to be put back on delay. It looks like, Craig. And thank you also to Leon Probitsky, who has hit super chat. He's got a very interesting icon. I guess it starts out as a weak little, I don't know what it is. At the end of the loop, or at the end of the transition of
Looks like some kind of mighty robot.
Mighty Mouse almost,
Yeah. Well, here's the GFS tonight. You can see that next wave that develops. This front's going to try to push east, and then it gets hung up because it's got to wait for another wave to develop. And that it does on Saturday. Showers and storms, western PA down into eastern Tennessee. They amplify as they move east into Pennsylvania Saturday afternoon. The isobars get a little bit on the tight side, so there'll be a pretty good south wind. And then the model seems to hold up with these showers and storms. This is at 8 o'clock in the evening, eastern Pennsylvania, down into Delaware, eastern Virginia, eastern North Carolina.
Look at that line, that orange stripe from central New York to southeast PA,
Yeah.
Obviously kicking to the east. So that certainly would go in your favor, Joe, for suggesting or calling for at least some convection, because it looks like there could be some lightning and thunder embedded in that. Yeah, so there you go. You may be right. Tomorrow we may find ourselves with general thunderstorm coverage, at least up in the tri-state area.
Well, if they do that, or if they put the risk up, well, they're watching the show even as we speak,
Yeah.
So anyway, the front gets hung up a little bit. This was forecast to actually get hung up on Sunday, and that it would rain all day Sunday. But now, the models have been trending to the idea that this front's going to move east and then get hung up in New England. And you can see it there. This is during the day Sunday and into Monday, especially up in Maine and northern New England and upstate New York. Even some blue snow shows up there in a few places. This would at least suggest that maybe it's going to take a while for things to clear out on Sunday, and there might even be, some clouds around and a little instability on Monday before the system pulls away. I mean, it's still got rain early Tuesday morning in southern Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and into Connecticut. And then meanwhile, here comes this next low in the south. You see the low there in New Mexico, and all the energy goes way to the south. We're not taking any lows to the Great Lakes with this pattern. And,
no.
There's a 1032 high north of Lake Superior, a low that goes almost straight east to South Carolina. And, the model's back to suppressing on this run, suppressing this low to the south, whereas the earlier run, I believe the 12Z run, wanted to turn it up the East Coast. And you see it here. It takes one area of energy out to the east and then a second area that comes up the coast for later Thursday and Friday. And yeah, that's dark blue snow that shows up in the northern parts of Pennsylvania and in upstate New York, maybe the higher mountains up in the Catskills and into the Adirondacks, if you want to believe it. But bottom line is, it's a blocking pattern. It's going to be cold for this time of year, and for snow lovers, it's too bad you didn't have this in January.
Wah, wah,
Wah.
wah.
It's, and then of course, here's another one. I mean, this is now May 2nd and 3rd. It looks like it just stays blocky for the next 2 weeks. So that's going to be fun. People have been complaining. In 1 week, you go from air conditioning to heat, back to air conditioning, back to heat.
Crazy. People get sick during this kind of weather. My grandmother used to say, sharp changes in weather over a short time, people always come down with something. So maybe a lot of people will come down with something like a winter-like flu or cold in early to mid-spring.
Well, we don't want that. We don't want anyone to get sick. We just
no, we don't.
No, we don't want anyone to get sick. So that pretty much covers it for tonight. I don't have any. Scott Briller
Jeopardy.
Right. The chairman, Scott Briller, is taking some time off, so we don't have any Briller Jeopardy to do. Do you have anything to tell our viewers? I'm in my summertime tank tops.
Well, I'm wearing a. Let's see how many people out there know what the significance of this is. This is one of my. I'll give you a hint. This is one of my baseball T-shirts, but. Anybody out there have any idea what this design or pattern is supposed to represent?
Stand up again. I couldn't get a good look at it. Hold on, I got to look at it on the other monitor so I can see. Okay, so that's like, I don't know, where the pitcher throws the ball and where the strike zone is.
You are wrong. Baseball Brett. No, this is a shirt that was put out by a group who sits out in the right center field stands at Citi Field. They call themselves the 7 Line, and the 7 Line put out this shirt some years ago in commemoration of Shea Stadium. David Carter, yes, indeed, Shea Stadium colors. Back before the Wilpon era came along and changed the exterior of Shea Stadium. Shea Stadium had these orange and blue tiles, which dated back to 1964 when the ballpark was built, and relates to the New York World's Fair. And they just kept them up there from 64 all the way up to about 1980. And then again, they took these tiles or these colors down and change the exterior of the stadium. But this is for all of you. I've got a shirt upstairs, Joe, and it was put out just after Citi Field was erected. It said, "I'm still calling it Shea."
Yeah.
So anyway, that's and on this day, here's another piece of trivia. I just came across this. On this day in 1912, Fenway Park, the first ball game ever played at Fenway Park. They played the New York Highlanders, which, by the way, later became the New York Yankees. And guess what? The Red Sox beat the Highlanders 7-6 on this day, opening day at Fenway Park. Hard to believe that stadium is still they're still playing baseball 111 years later. They're still using that.
It's a gorgeous stadium.
It's gorgeous from the inside, and I always wanted to see a ball game there. I was in Boston in 1994 and was in a hotel right down the road from Fenway Park. Couldn't get in. Why? Because in 1994, that was the year that the ball players were on strike and we didn't have a World Series. But it was such. I did get to see the Citgo sign out in left field,
Yes.
flashing. And I want to tell you something. from the outside, Fenway Park doesn't look like a ballpark. It looks like a factory.
Right. No, you're
You
right.
wouldn't,
It does. You're absolutely right. You would if you didn't know you were outside of Fenway, you'd wonder what was there.
and it was and the streets immediately around the periphery of the ballpark, very narrow,
Yes.
very narrow. You say, so how do they play baseball? Where do they put the cars? What do they do? But they do it. And again, a great ballpark. I hope that I'll get a chance to see a ball game there before I. That's on my bucket list.
On
See a
your
baseball game
at
at
Fenway.
Fenway Park.
All right. Okay. On that note, let's call it a night. But before we do, happy birthday to Tim on Friday, also known as Latex Dreams. I'll just say to you, Tim, happy birthday, and I hope your dreams will come true. And we'll just leave it at that. And
And thanks to our super chat hits tonight to Leon Probitsky, Frank Scalera, Keith James, and Johnny Quest. We thank you all for your contributions to tonight's symposium.
48 likes, so 100's not going to happen, but maybe somebody can notch us up to 50, and then we could say good night. I see 49.
We are at 50.
We're at 50. Okay. So, all right. So don't forget, folks, the Sunday show, if it happens, will be at 8:30 p.m. Sunday, 8:30 p.m., not at 11 a.m. Okay? So we will hopefully see you then. Have a great Friday and a great weekend. And, of course, as we all know, the Joe and Joe Weather Show is... Hold on a second. Let's see what I have here. Oh, I got to go back frame. Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 for the best prices anywhere to make your home look great. OmniTrueValue.com is the website. And also brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and other weather-related merchandise. And you can join the fastest growing observing network on the planet. The link is pinned up to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show, you get an extra 10% off. So have a great Friday and a great weekend. Hopefully we'll see you Sunday night. Good night, Joe.
Good night, Joe.